With rail improvements swiftly completed in both Superior and Michigan, Johnson Aggregates can't make up any more excuses about not setting up shop in Magnolia County, especially since their CEO just happens to be the governor of Superior. So the company announces plans to open up a mine here, near the rail yard and the Superior Highway. They plan on building an open pit copper mine that will eventually take over the entire hillside. However, knowing that demand is still soft for copper, Johnson Aggregates has been doing a bit of work behind the scenes. They've been attempting to attract a wire and cable manufacturer to the industrial park, hoping that they could absorb some of the copper that they will be manufacturing. One manufacturer in particular has shown a bit of interest. However, they are concerned that the local workforce doesn't have the specialized manufacturing skills needed for their factories. If only the area had a college. If only they knew someone in Van Buren that could help. Hopefully someone can help with that in a future episode. In this episode, our primary focus will be building just one thing, this new copper mine. We'll attempt to make it as realistic as possible while still ensuring that it's completely functional. And if you enjoy taking on big projects like this mine, hit the like button. And if you enjoy building smaller projects more rapidly, hit the like button for that too, and let me know how you prefer to build down in the comments. Or drop an emoji that reminds you of today's project for the sake of engagement. And without any further ado, let's jump right in. Hello and welcome back to Magnolia County. We're gonna get to the build in just a minute, but I wanted to admire this traffic jam. Some people see a problem, I see progress, and I know that this city is doing really well because we've got lots of activity. Now, interestingly, we're going to add to this problem today, so we're going to likely need to take on a project sometime soon here. I'm sure that the Superior Department of Transportation is already taking an active look at the situation here. So we're going to begin by basically prepping our site today. The very first thing that we need to do is purchase a tile, likely these two right here. And then I want to provide a highway access through this area and level a couple of things. So we'll purchase these two tiles, and then I'm going to remove a bunch of trees. I know this will probably be controversial, but I just can't see what I'm doing right now. And I think the best way to handle this is just to completely remove the trees. So this will be the general location of the mines. I really wish that I could turn on the contour view to see what I'm doing while I'm removing the trees, but that is not an option. And it looks like I did okay. I'm fairly pleased with this. Let's start out by building our highway. And this will be a fairly basic two-way highway. Now, I could tee into either this road or this one. I think that this will be a more major collector in the future. So we'll probably start here. And now I don't want to snap to anything outside of our existing geometry and 90-degree angles. Everything else doesn't really matter to me. We're going to try to meander our way up here. So I'm going to go into the continuous tool. And I think what we'll do, there's already a natural little divot right here. This will be the center of our mine. We'll try to just work our way around here, come out on the other side, and then connect up with the highway. I don't want to cul-de-sac this. It's already going to be a bit of a cul-de-sac of the mine itself. So we should do our best to ensure that the rest of this is not a cul-de-sac. And interestingly, I'm already seeing our first problem. Our grade here is really challenging. It's a 10% grade going up here, so I am going to do a little bit of pre-grading. So we'll take our brush size down to maybe 50. And then we'll use our slope terrain tool to create our own slopes, then switch back right up. Now, I know that we're going to have some really sloped out areas today, really intense slopes inside of our mine, but we shouldn't do that just yet. We've got time for that. Now, I'm going to take a slight break from doing this to think about the mine just a little bit. So I want to level the area where the mine's going to be, or at least an outline of the mine. I'm thinking that we're going to need to be really, really careful with this, and we'll take that on in the next section. But for now, I'm going to follow this contour line and we'll push dirt around just a little bit. Okay, a lot of leveling, a lot of grading, a lot of tree removal, and I've done a couple of things here. First of all, you see that I've kind of created this pad right here where I've taken the hillside and just cut it off, and it's completely flat. That is very deliberate. This will be our starting point. It's going to be where our main road wraps around and heads down to our existing highway. Then we're going to carve down from here. And I've also leveled out a small area right here. This will be some of our material storage. So We will be using this extensively, this area, building out probably some aggregate mines to make it look like it's some materials that we're storing or something of that nature. But now that we have this, let's get down the hillside. And I think we're going to wrap this thing around pretty extensively. And I've drawn this in here, but we're likely going to modify this a little bit. For instance, I didn't want that, but at least now I have a starting point. So let's get this repaired. And then the other place I'm interested in is right here. That looks like a fairly steep slope, and we're coming down into this area. So we're going to clean this up and likely pre-grade a bit of this out as well. Thinking about the vehicles that are going to be driving down this road, you got to think these are going to be vehicles that have a ton of heavy material in them. So we need to make sure that they can get up and down here safely and efficiently. And I think something like that will do really well for us. And I know if you're a European viewer, you're probably looking at this thinking, stop it with the at-grade crossings. They're fairly common in this part of the world, so that's why we're going with them. So I hear you, and at some point we will likely improve it. But for now, we are going to live with that because I think it's what you'd probably see, the path of least resistance, which isn't always the best path to take. Now, the other thing I want to do to prepare the sites are get a couple of local roads around here. We're going to add an alleyway. That's what we'll use for our local mining roads. So we'll grab this and send this all the way around here. And for this one, I basically want all of my snap twos off with the exception of 90-degree angles only for this connection and this one, and then snapping to existing geometry after that. And then we've got one more major connection to make. Maybe major is the wrong word. One more connection of some sort to make, and that's right down here. And again, we will slope this, knowing our vehicles that'll be using this road. Truthfully, I'm not a huge fan of what I just did. So I decided to bring in all this fill. Like maybe that's possible, but it's probably not likely. So we'll bridge it instead. Or honestly, even better, we'll come in at a more logical spot and not have to do much of anything at all. That is pretty good. And this is where our material handling will be once again, so I want to make sure that we get that right up front. We're also likely going to have some sort of a service station, but we will handle that in the future. And I'm going to add one more road down here for a potential service station in the future. And who knows, maybe this will even be a spot that tourists can come and fuel up in the future. And speaking of tourists, in the previous video, I mentioned that there were 18 visitors to Magnolia County. Did you see who one of those 18 visitors was? Philip with 2 L's. And though he's looking a little older than he used to, he's proof that you can teach an old dog new tricks. Philip's learned all about man-in-the-middle attacks, and he's gotten really good at them. All he has to do is set up a hotspot with a Wi-Fi name that looks legitimate and wait for unsuspecting visitors to hop on his Wi-Fi. And look who we have here. James is using Philip's Wi-Fi to buy Jamila gifts and entering his credit card info now. And guess who was there to scoop it right up? Philip with 2 L's. You know, this wouldn't have happened if James had been using today's video sponsor, NordVPN. NordVPN will encrypt your data flow no matter whether your connection is secure or not. So if James had been using NordVPN, Philip wouldn't be purchasing this sweater using his credit card info right now. But it's not just about security. Using NordVPN, you'll be able to access region-locked content from around the world. Which country do you think has the largest Netflix library in the world? The US? The UK? Germany maybe? Nope, that distinction goes to Slovakia. Yes, Slovakia, which has 8,427 titles, which is about 1,000 more than the UK and Germany and more than 2,000 more than the US. So if you pick up NordVPN, you'll get to experience the pure bliss of being a Slovakian Netflix user. So whether it's safety you're looking for or a bit of fun, NordVPN will get the job done. And if you use my link to get NordVPN, you'll save big and get an extra 4 months free. So sign up for NordVPN at nordvpn.com/cityplanner. It's risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. A huge thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to it. Now for our big dig. This is the part that I'm a little bit nervous about, but I've got some ideas that I think are going to make this turn out really well. So the first of them is, generally when I've created pit mines in the past, I've wrapped a road all the way down. But I decided to look at some images of mines, and one thing that I noticed is that there generally wasn't this gigantic road that's spiraling all the way down. There's one road that's going all the way down, and there are multiple layers and tiers to the mine itself. So that's what we're going to try to do right now, is we're going to just send the mine down to the bottom, and then we're going to create those terraces going all the way up. So I'm going to try to be really deliberate with this. I want to first see just how low we are here, and I want to also make sure that whatever terrace we have our road on is at least 50 or 60 wide with our brush strength, because I think that will prevent tearing. And I can already tell this is not good enough. We're only about 10 meters down, and I really want this thing to be much, much, much deeper. So we have those multiple layers. So I have created this spot right here, which is where the low point was of the hill before. I thought that I would just be digging this out to finish off this area, but I think that truthfully, we're gonna go even deeper here. So just one half tap basically. And that mini tap at 55% is 10 meters. So it just shows you how careful you have to be. And the fun thing is that 10 meters is probably one good step. So maybe we won't go overly crazy here, and we'll start turning our brush strength a little bit further down. Now I am curious. We have 50 brush width here. I just want to try to make a mental note of this. And it looks like it's about the width in between the road and this area right here. So that is what I need to make sure we're maintaining for the area that will have our road. You know what? I decided to think on my feet a bit here and modify my plans on the fly. So the reason for that is it just kind of felt like if I were planning for the road up front, I might not get the mine layers correct. So I decided to do the mine layers, and now we'll try to figure out the appropriate path for this road after the fact. So I'm thinking that we're gonna find somewhere right in the middle, and I'll right mouse click up here, and then we'll slope a long ways back to keep this nice and gentle. I'm feeling really good about this. What we're gonna do now is turn off all of our snap tools except for snap to existing geometry and try to get this road going. So I'm gonna send this up this way. And I meant to have the continuous tool on. So I guess we got a little bit of a straight segment, not the end of the world. And now we have just a little bit of repair work to do over here. Oh, look at that. We've got some moose down here. Well, sorry guys, this is probably not the best place for you, but I guess you do you. Whatever works for you. Okay, so now I want to pull this back. I want it to continue to wrap around, and we need to get this down to the bottom level because this is going to be what brings water and power down to our main industry building. And I want to make sure we're not crossing a whole bunch. So we could have multiple roads coming down here, but it's going to block our industry area from expanding. So thinking ahead, we are going to have a gigantic cul-de-sac, and I'm going to wind this around down here until we get to our main industry building. And then we're going to basically pull that all the way around here. And hopefully it turns out okay. We'll find out. We'll find out. And now we've got our very bottom heights. Now we just need to work our way down here. We're going to run this road down here and then loop sharply back this way. Oh, that looks so good. That looks so good. Now, I mentioned the separation in between the road and the side, and these are the kinds of areas that I'm talking about. So if we don't get at least 50 meters in between and it's completely level on either side of the road, what we're going to find is that once we go to place this district over the top, the area tool, we'll get lots of crazy shadowing and whatnot. So we want to avoid that. So we'll do this, and then we'll go back through after the fact and repair once again. Okay, I think I need to be okay with this. I think one of the hardest things to do at times can be just knowing when to stop and when good enough is good enough. and we're gonna say that this is good enough. One thing to keep in mind is that the texture here is not gonna be super sharp, so it's not gonna really matter, and that we can adjust this area after we have the area tool over the top of it. So we don't need to get super crazy about this. Let's go ahead and make it happen. And under specialized industry, our ore mine, and I want to disable snapping to the road. We'll show our contour lines, and then we're going to place this right at the end here. Now there's still that bug where it disappears, so we've got to make sure the building is actually showing itself, and then we can place it. Now I don't really care about any of this stuff right now. I will fix this down the line. Let's fix our terrain first. Actually, maybe we'll just leave it like that. I kind of like the idea of the lowest area being in this pit, but that not being the same height as the main part of the operation. We'll slope down to it. Oh yeah. And now we need to connect this place up with power and water first. We're gonna do that right away. For water and sanitary sewer, place these underneath the road, right where they belong. And then for power, we're just going to light this highway. I mean, it's going right through this site. You could fall off the side of the road, so I think that lighting it seems to be appropriate. And we'll basically go to the edge of the mine site with our power, and that should give us power down in the mine. So things are technically fully operational inside of our mine right now. But for this one thing, our mining area is pretty teeny tiny. So let's get this thing expanded so that it really encompasses this entire area. Now, the one thing I didn't check, I'm a little bit nervous about, is our area. And it doesn't cover our entire mining operation. So we're likely going to need to add one more extractor right about here. So let's do that right away. Let's just take care of it. We know it's going to be an issue. And I was wondering if I could get away with one. And I, maybe, I want to know if I have to. Yeah, I think it's going to let me do it. So yeah, I just didn't want to have to come back to this tool. I wanted to just be able to place it now and fix it later, and it let me. Love that. All right, I think we're ready to finally add our area tools, or use our area tools rather, so let's get it going. And I want to just try to do this in as organic a way as possible. And that's going to mean turning off basically all of our snap twos. Maybe the side of the road is the one that we can deal with, and maybe side of the building as well. Outside of that, they're not going to be very helpful. So I'm going to try to expand this as much as I can. And just a moment ago, I mentioned how I was concerned that the road could block me from expanding this as large as I want it to be, and I have indeed done that. So as a result, I've got an option. Well, I've got two options. I either ignore this and just leave it as is. That's option one. Option two is I add another extractor, and I think I'm crazy enough to add another extractor. We're going to add one right here. And to do this, I'm going to need to bump out this road. And then we'll just extend out our existing road and get everything reestablished through here. But I'll be honest with you, when I started this, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this. And, you know, I'm okay with it. I think it obviously would have been better if I could have used just one mine for all of this, but we're making do. We're experimenting. We're figuring things out on the fly, and I think the results are pretty good. Ooh, and I like that it spawned that building right there because we should be able to keep that one there. Okay, this is not perfect, but I think that this is pretty good. And, you know, I really wish that I could see some of the shadowing a little bit better, but it's all right. You can kind of see the terracing and the levels. So this is a much better job of what we did in 2 episodes ago when we built the aggregate mine. Now, a couple of things that I do want to fix. We've got this underground mine right here that is in a really bad spot. And I think the way that we fix that is just to move this out. And we've played whack-a-mole before. This is a different kind of whack-a-mole. I think we might have it. We might have one that I can live with. I can't live with that one. Oh boy. It just feels like, I just wish that I could control these more. And I think I may just leave that, just be okay with that. The other thing I'm noticing is that we need to add driveway access to this building. So we'll do something like that as well. Oh, I can't leave it. I can't leave it. Okay, that one is actually pretty darn good. And I should be able to fix this one to make it look rational. Oh my goodness. Now I can sleep tonight because I was starting to already have nightmares while I'm awake, which is not a good thing. Over here, this one too, I'm going to live with this one. No. And I may need to be okay with the, every time I think it's almost there, it's not. Okay, we're going to try to make this make some sense. I don't know that it does or that it will make total sense, but we'll at least make it not look bad. I really wish, again, that we had some semblance of control over these, or that they at least had a logic about how they spawn. But without that, we can make some things happen. And I think this is what those things will be. We'll just do that. And that will do quite well for us. The other thing that we want to do is create some of our storage over here. So for this, I'm going to use a couple of aggregate mines. So I like this for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think it'll give us a little bit of diversity in terms of the materials that we're providing over here. It doesn't require any materials. And the one thing that I guess is a bit of a regret, I wish that the aggregate mines had some different color for the material that's inside of there. If it had that, this plan would be perfect. I'm wondering if the coal mine is any different. I don't think it is. But what I was thinking is we'll turn this around this way. And then I'll have an aggregate mine over here facing in the opposite direction. And then I'm going to grab a dirt road and run that all the way around here. And this will give us everything that we need for power and water and sanitary sewer. But yeah, you can see the buildings are different, but we're not actually seeing any differences in terms of the color of the material. Not the end of the world. What I want to do is we'll add a dividing line here. And then I'm going to raise the height up just a bit. And I want it to seem like we have some material handling right here that's taking place. And now all we have to do is take our area tool, spread it out, and it should turn out really, really well. And there we go. The one thing I want to change is we've got a paved alley right here. We'll just downgrade this. Basically from this point, honestly, maybe we'll just go all the way and make it a dirt road all the way down. This is a cul-de-sac. I'm not overly concerned about it. This is something that I saw routinely when I was looking at mines, though, these sorts of areas like this. And this is pretty easy to see the height of. It almost looks like the landfill and the way that there is the elevation change in the landfill. So I really like the way that that turned out. And, as I look at this, it does really feel like it needs a secondary way out. And I think we will provide it that way out right here. There, that's not perfect, but now we've given this road additional utilization or additional ways to utilize it. And we've de-cul-de-sac this. And in general, I think it's a good solution for this area. And I love that we're starting to see a couple of, it's gone. So I thought that we were seeing some of those vehicles go through here. We saw one and it quickly dove into the hillside. Either way, I want to see what we're looking at in terms of production here. And we are more than meeting our need. We have a significant surplus now, for basically everything except for oil and cotton. Totally fine with that. Totally fine with that. And with our mine looking good, let's switch gears for a moment and build a couple of new farms. Oh dear. Though I'm excited to build some farms, I figure we should take a look at what's happening here. And you can see that a significant portion of our previous build is currently on fire, along with some of these hills that I thought that we protected. So obviously we've got a little bit of work to do on fire coverage. That's probably not a today thing, but it is something that we're gonna have to tackle very, very soon. Maybe this should be something we tackle today, but I am invested in something that we are going to do instead, and that is work on some farms. But before we build anything over here, I want to think a little bit about this highway, because right now we've been slowly adding onto it, and I think that we've got to give this a bit more thought before we do that once again. So I basically want to make a connection between this highway and this one over here, so that will be on the agenda today. But first, we've got to buy some tiles. And I think we're going to do this slowly. We'll buy one tile here and one here. And the reason I want to do this slowly is I want to build those county roads. So again, we're using our tiles as our Jeffersonian grid. So we'll grab these alleys again and continue to build out. So we're basically going just far enough down from our tile boundary to have the cone of the road straddle the tile boundary. And then we'll do the exact same thing over here. And I'm going to just rough this out, and then we'll come up here at a perfect 90. There we go. And now that we have that, I think we can go a bit further because we want to start purchasing tiles this way. And I'm going to take this one because I know that I need it, but then I want to look at the terrain a little bit because we haven't really done that yet. Yeah, so we need to figure out a nice crossing here where we are not at grade. What we'll do is we'll switch back over to our highways, and I want to just get over the top of this. And I'm amazed. It's allowing me to sneak over the top at 5 meters. I was fairly certain that that wouldn't work. Ah, it doesn't work. It's going at grade. Okay, I found the sweet spot. It's 10 meters on this side and 8.75 on this side. That allowed me to cross over the top of our rail track. You can see this is tight. Actually, it's too tight. We are touching the lines. That is not good. Okay, compromise 2. We went 10 meters all the way, but I went even more diagonal, and now this span right here is only 7 units. So as a result of that, I can start the descent a little bit sooner. Hey folks, don't be like me. I just spent a ridiculous amount of time to build what is basically the most minor of bridges in the entire region. But it, to me, was really important that this wasn't a gigantic cut and fill bridge because of how minor in the big scheme of things this bridge really is. So I went absolutely ham on it, and this is the net result. We brought in a bunch of fill to create this bridge, and honestly, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world. All right, now we need to link this up, and we're gonna go super simple with this. We'll just come up perfectly straight, and then we'll round the bend. And we can't have that connecting in at that angle right there, so we'll need to come in with another spot in the future. All right, now we've got one more major connection to make, and that's right here. Let's buy a couple more tiles. And for this one, it's really difficult to see without having our terrain lines here. But I know that we're gonna need this one, so we'll purchase this one, and then we'll take a look. And interesting, we've got some terrain stuff happening here. I'm gonna, once again, add some more of these. Now, I think technically we'd want to be beneath this. So I'm going to send this straight through, and then we'll sever these. Remember, some of these are just guidelines, and we will change them down the line. For this one, we actually want this road to be right about here, and this will follow the pattern that we've had. And then we'll do the exact same thing this way. Now, the interesting thing will be right here because we want to connect up with this highway. And I think we'll start out right about here, and we'll purchase that one and these two. And that should get us where we want to go. But I do want to build out some of these Jeffersonian grid highways first. And unfortunately, I've purchased tiles too quickly, and I don't know where this new guideline is. So I think I will need to actually pop into here, and it's going to pull me way out here, and figure out where this line is. And it looks like, I'm wondering if it just makes sense to buy one more tile, just so I know where this guideline, where this grid line is, so I can continue my Jeffersonian grid. And I think I will. I'll just buy this one, and at least then we should be able to continue drawing our grid. And there we go. I just wanted to draw these in to make sure that we have them in the future, because if we lose them, it's going to be considerably more challenging to add them in. Let's switch back into our highway mode, and we're going to respect the topography. That is our main goal here, keeping things relatively straight and consistent. And here is where I think we start to repurpose some of that right of way. And we end up with a very gentle slope as a result. Then we'll just sever this one right here and then continue to upgrade this. Now, interestingly, it's actually potentially going the wrong way for us, since it's starting to head up the side of these fingers here. So we will go our own way and use the topography to guide what we're doing. And this to me looks like the most logical path, going right along the side of the water here. And now we have one more major connection to make. And now that I look at this a little bit more, I think we're going to completely ignore our right of way and just go straight through here and then kind of cut up the hillside with the terrain, which will give us a nice 4.9% grade. And then something like that. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to have any conflicts with this power line, but I think it turned out pretty well. I am going to connect up these local little farm roads in a couple of locations. There we go. And that gives us some more irregular parcels. And you guys know how much I love those, because we can do some really special things here. So one of the things that I want to do is we are going to use this area right here. There's one farm right here and another right here. But I want to, instead of having everything be completely perfect, there were a couple of comments that said you really need to liven up the shape of your farms by having a little couple pockets of forest here and there. So even though we're not detailing just yet, I am going to do that. And I'm feeling tile happy today. I'm looking at this little spot right here, and I just desperately want to connect those two roads, because I think I have one random tile. Yeah, so we're going to purchase this one. We again will not be able to completely conform to our grid, which is completely fine and honestly very nice. So we'll do something like that, building this area out a little bit more. There's some rural roads that you could take to get around here as well. And this one, again, is one of those main county roads, which is why we have paved it. Now, for this area back here, we could certainly follow the same pattern that we've done up here, but I think I'm going to follow that same advice, and we will once again just plant a bunch of trees back here and make it seem like we've carved a little bit into the forest to make this happen. And then to complete the aesthetic of this kind of being something that we have done over time, I do want to expand the area of this farm a little bit more if we can. Honestly, I thought I had more runway than this, but I don't. So we'll extend it a little ways, but there's still this little area down here that I just can't work with. And over here, honestly, there's not a lot to work with either. So I've been trying to keep about a 2-unit gap in between the farm over here and the road, so we'll just make sure that we're maintaining that. And honestly, that is pretty darn good. Now, 2 more farms over here, and we've got to check out what we actually need. And I think we'll go with 2 vegetable farms. Last time we got petrochemicals out of that, which was kind of funny. And I've added a few more homes on these, thinking that maybe they are multi-generational farms and there are multiple generations of farmers living at these addresses. All right, so now we are going to pull this out, and you see we've got this forest back here. I want to maintain that. So that will be our goal this time around. And I think we'll go with something like this for this farm. And over here, we're going to really try to work our way around the forest. All right, let's plant some more oak trees because I do want to extend this back, and I want these to be adult oak trees, so we'll Control L into the line tool and finish off there. Now, we could do the exact same thing over here, but I spoke a little bit about my desire to have this feel a bit more natural. So what I think we're going to do is we'll have a little bit of a subdivision right here, a rural subdivision, and then we will just have some forest back here. So I am going to place a couple of oak trees inside of these yards. So again, that's dragging out just a little ways so I can plant some adult trees. Don't want to get overly prescriptive on these, so I'm not going to go nuts. And now we'll plant that little bit of forest in between here. And I'm going to reseed some of this area that I went over the top of. A little bit of a mistake. Okay, and I'll be completely honest, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about this yet. We'll have to wait until it fills in, but for the time being, it does look like it has a fairly dense, thick bit of landscaping, which I appreciate. So I don't want to go crazy with this. All we decided to do was throw in Mulberry Lane. We're going to add a couple of homes back here, probably some fairly small ones, spread them out a little ways, maybe a small rural park, and we'll call it a day. We don't need to get crazy with these. And I really like the idea of the small playground. My mom grew up in a fairly rural area, and when I would go to visit my grandpa's house, he would have, I'd pass this little playground area and a baseball diamond. And even though they were out in the middle of nowhere, in the most rural place you could think of, this is something that you would see. And it was a major amenity for all the kids in the area. So we're going to place that here, even though we're out in the boonies. And after a couple of minutes of letting everything fill in, we've got our little subdivision. Not many homes, little tiny trees, but I think this place is going to look really good in the future and very realistic. And though we've already planted a ton of trees, let's do a bit of landscaping and detailing. And we're back at the mine, and there are a few things that I want to do. The very first thing I want to do is find all of these jagged edges and smooth these out. There are a couple of areas where I got a bit aggressive and a couple areas where maybe I didn't get aggressive enough. So let's fix those areas. I decided to keep this little cut right here as kind of a reminder that this used to be a hill right here, and it's all dug into at this point in time. So we are pretty clear there. The next thing I want to do is add some trees along the highway here. So this would be a road that the state probably doesn't want people seeing into here. Maybe this development doesn't want it either. So we're going to use our line tool extensively here and place a bunch of trees really close to one another. And I'm going to go with spruce trees because they will provide year-round cover. And we're going to fill in most of the rest of this area with a whole bunch of dense forest, but I want to add a couple of zone buildings in here first. The first one I want to add is going to be right down here, and I want to have some sort of a commercial property. Now, one thing I saw in the comments is that if I do 4x6, I might actually get a service station. So we'll give it a shot. And up here, we're going to place a couple of industrial buildings. Now, my hope is that there's some synergy here in between what we're actually extracting and what our industrial buildings are, but we'll just have to wait and see. I'll also add some parking here so that folks here could park right at their place of employment. And I'm hoping that we get some small warehouses and things like that right here. That's funny. It's actually railway lane that's wrapping all the way around here. Considering it's doing that, I may do one small thing over here. I'm not really sold on what we're doing here, this movement. So that's the height of realism. When you're unhappy with the terrain, just make your own and you'll be completely happy. And truthfully, I am. I think this is a ton better. Now, while this is filling in, let's take a look over here and see what we get. We have a power and a water problem. That's what we get. So we'll need to make our connections here. And it's not a service station. I should just really give up on this, but I'm not. I'm gonna give it at least one more try because I'm a glutton for pain. And let's be completely realistic. There's no way that the power cable gets buried here, but we're doing it anyway because at least it works. So, and then I'm going to add in another business over here or two. And honestly, I decided to go all the way back on this and we'll just have 3 new businesses here with a little bit of space. And while those are filling in, I'm going to once again go absolutely ham on the landscaping and fill in this entire area around here to make it feel lush and forested. And there we go. That is a ton of landscaping and we still don't have these businesses filled in yet. So while that's going, there's one more thing I want to do in this area. And this is going to do literally nothing for functionality, but I do think it would be realistic. I want to add a transformer over here. To me, this is a large enough power user that it's something that you would almost expect to see over here. So let's find a nice flat area and then we will connect our power right up to it. And I'm thinking we might have to go something like this. We've already got our lines right there. So we'll just spin this around. And then we'll grab our power line, our transmission line, and connect right in. We've got a couple of buildings over here. I wanted to check these out to see what we got. Vegetables, wood, timber, wood. Okay, so none of these really make any sense, but we'll just roll with it. It'll be fine. And then over here, do we finally get our gas station? Textiles, vehicles, and pharmaceuticals. Whatever. You win, City Skylines 2. We're gonna just roll with it. But I am generally fairly pleased with how this has turned out. And I think there's only one more thing left to do. Let's take inventory of what we've done with a brief city tour. And before we wrap things up, I want to make a couple of fixes based on your feedback. And most of those fixes are going to be right here at our train station. There were really 3 buckets of feedback that I received about this. The first was about our taxi stand, which we don't need. Second was about our routing, which is illogical. And third is about the actual layout of our tracks here, and that's where I want to begin. VetGamer left a very detailed comment about ways to improve the overall track layout here, and I think it really comes into a couple of buckets. First, we need to get back to the main line as quickly as possible. The angle going into our main line needs to be as slight as possible to maintain speeds, and then all of our switching needs to occur on level ground because of derailments, which we would definitely have here. So we are going to eliminate most of our track here and try again. The other thing I think we're going to do is we're going to take Eisenhower Street and grade separate it. I think it's going to be necessary to do what we need to do right here, even though it didn't seem as though VetGamer had a problem with this area in particular. But let's give it a shot. And I am going to pause this while we're deleting all of this, which you guys know I don't love to do, but I think it's going to be necessary to make the fixes we need to make here. And now I think I'm going to go with just snap to existing geometry, cell length, and 90-degree angles to begin. And I'm going to send this out about, we'll go 12 units. And from my understanding, the outer track is the one that should merge into the main line, and the middle line should merge into the outer track. Now, VetGamer, if I did not understand that correctly, please let me know. And from my understanding, this is what you meant. Now, let me know, is this what you meant? We're merging quickly. Our angles are very gentle. It looks very logical to me. So hopefully I got this right. So one connection here and we should be good to go. And I think we're going to need to adjust this angle once again. So we will definitely do that. You know what? That feels really, really good. Now, the reason I think we're going to need to grade separate this is I'm guessing if we just roll through here, it's not going to let it happen. Not anymore. These are too close together. It's going to destroy everything for us. So we've got two options, really. We go underground or we go above ground. I'm going to try to go underground. Ooh, that is some eminent domain right there, friends. We're not doing that. I will add a node here, and now let's try to drop this underground. And I will be upfront. The terrain is no longer working with us. We were working with it before, but now I think we've got to go another block further back and start going underground right here. So this is a significant modification, but I think it's what we've got to do. Holy cow, I went way harder on this area than I expected to, but we basically had to redo everything to make this work, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm really curious to know how you're gonna feel. Basically, we had to send this underground in a tunnel, and that caused us to rethink our entire roadway network around here. This is a little bit janky. I don't love how long this is, but I do think it would work. I'd love to have another connection over here, but that is very, very, very steep. I also had to redo a bunch of zoning, and just generally, I'd say that this is a much better place to be a pedestrian and a much worse place to be a driver, which is probably fine. I'm gonna resume things again, and we'll start to see some of the buildings fill in. We've obviously got a bunch of landscaping we have to fill in as well. Over here, this one, I'm gonna say it's gonna be easier, but we're gonna find out. And for this one, the big thing is going to be keeping things level. So I'm gonna grab this height over here and I'm gonna extend it over here. Now that's a big deviation from what I did before, but I want to basically have our switching occurring up here. So we are going to de-zone a bunch right here as well and redo this bridge span. Okay, I made many more changes than I wanted to make here, but I think it's necessary if we want this the switching action to occur on flat ground. So now we have level ground. I'm going to extend this out. We'll say 10 units, and then we'll do the exact same thing that we did on the other side. So on the outer track, we merge that one in. And then I'm gonna go strictly with snap to existing geometry and 90-degree angles to try to make this one. And I think I'm gonna have to finish our slope here first. It seems like that is the big hangup. Now I think that I may have let down Vet Gamer, but I wanna see in the comments, is this what you meant? Is that too sloped out or is this doable? We'll have to see, we'll have to see. I'm gonna be looking for your comment, Vet Gamer. Now let's get the rest of this reestablished. And now I'm hoping that I've done you proud there at least. There's a little bit more here. I think we've got to back things up. We're just a little bit too close at this point. So we're going to take 1 unit of zoning back all the way along here. Use a bit of eminent domain. And then I'll spread that out. And I think I'm going to move, wow, full parking lot. We're going to move that over as well. The heights of realism, all the things that we're doing right now. And okay, I think that this is good. So now we can move on to the other things, beginning with our taxi stand, which now again is the entire block. So we'll just get rid of this because we can update our train station to have a taxi stop. So now all of our taxis will go here. Much better solution for this entire area. Love that. And then finally, let's adjust our lines here. So there were a number of feedbacks suggesting that rather than having the 2 lines that meet at the train station, we just have one. Right now, we're seeing 2% utilization for Bend to Duluth and 3% Bend to Nicolay Bay. I'm gonna get rid of these. I will begin a route here. We'll go out to Duluth first. And then I'm gonna stop here again, but rather than stopping at the same location where it would complete the line, we'll stop on the other side. And then we'll go all the way out to Nicolay Bay. and then we can complete the line. And for this line, we're going to call this the superior line. I think we'll just let this run for a little while, but I do want to make a couple of changes before we just kind of let this simulate and see how it fills in. I'm going to increase the density in this area because, again, we've redeveloped here. And hopefully this will get some things to fill in here as well. And then lastly, I want to spray some trees because we have some new gaps in our tree coverage. And now that we've sprayed some trees, I'm going to let this run for a couple of minutes and we'll see what our utilization looks like. That's an increase. We have almost 1,000 people using this each month, which is outstanding, but only 1%, 2% overall utilization. I'll take it. I'm hopeful that this improves over time. The layout's definitely better. We have our transit focused right in our station, so hopefully things continue to improve. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that with all of our fire watchtowers, I added a bunch of roads that was totally unnecessary. I could have just added power lines either above or below ground, and we would have been just fine, but I decided to take the hardest road. And here's what we ended up with. So don't be like me. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that at all. All that said, I think that this is where we're going to leave it today. I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please consider hitting the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I want to thank you so much for the privilege of your time today. There's a million things that you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me and play some City Skylines too, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.